The governments that fought to crush crypto are now the ones backing it. That's not speculation. It's the breaking shift that just came out of fresh statements in Washington and London. For more than a decade, officials called crypto too risky, too unstable, too dangerous to anchor real finance. Yet right now, in real time, they're laying down the digital rails that could carry trillions. Once those rails are live, the entire structure of global money changes. In the next 8 minutes, you'll see the 3 signals that prove this pivot is already underway, the timeline that usually follows once regulators align, and the single inflection point that shows you the old system has given way to the new one. You won't hear jargon or filler, you'll see how the rails are being built under your feet. Start with the words, because that's where power hides its plans. Senior voices in both capitals now repeat the same phrases: interoperability, regulatory equivalence, tokenized settlement. These aren't academic buzzwords, they are the legal keys that let dollars and pounds cross the same bridge without friction. When the same language appears on both sides of the Atlantic in the same season, coordination isn't a theory, it's a map. Here's where it turns from interesting to kinetic. Pilots are no longer press releases. Clearinghouses have tested tokenized collateral. In London, the digital securities sandbox lets major firms issue and settle instruments directly on-chain, and when the plumbing takes a new form, the water follows it. The second signal is the regulatory gap starting to close. For years, rules diverged, so compliant capital couldn't move on-chain across borders without friction. Now the frameworks are being shaped to meet in the middle. When a bank-backed issuer can be recognized by a custodian abroad with no detour, the barrier falls and liquidity begins to pool on the faster rail. The third signal hides inside a dry policy fight over limits. In the United Kingdom, the central bank has floated caps on how much regulated players can hold in certain stablecoins. That sounds like a footnote. It's not. If those caps become transitional or vanish with clear exemptions, the status shifts from experiment to infrastructure, and volumes jump in steps, not in drips. Pull back and look at the mechanism that makes all of this inevitable. It's not love for innovation. It's not a trend chase. It's debt. Both systems carry obligations that can't be gentle with rate hikes or austerity without political damage. So they reach for the one tool that buys time and preserves control: faster and more flexible settlement with total audit trails. Tokenized rails give speed, finality, and programmable safeguards while keeping the supervisor in the loop. They cut the cost of moving collateral and widen the hours when markets can breathe. They also let policymakers steer flows with rules that can update in code rather than in committee. Once the desk feels that efficiency, it rarely goes back to slower pipes. Here's the part almost no one sees until it's too late. The dream of exit money is getting reforged into official money. The escape hatch is becoming a highway with cameras on every lane. When the state becomes a gatekeeper of the rail, freedom narrows for anyone who thought the old rules wouldn't follow them onto the chain. History gives the timeline. When Europe harmonized clearing arrangements 2 decades ago, cross-border flows surged within 2 years. After the crisis in the late 2000s, new repo plumbing jumped from proposal to practice as soon as the major dealers committed. Once the rules rhyme and the pilots touch production, the window is 6 to 18 months for migration to feel normal. Signals arrive before headlines. Watch for matching language in policy notes and testimonies in both capitals. Watch for the moment a sandbox program reports continuous settlement rather than isolated tests. Watch for caps that soften into guidance with explicit pathways to exceed them under supervision. Those are your track lights in the tunnel. Here's a scene to anchor it. A bond desk in London agrees to post tokenized bills as collateral for a dollar swap. The custodian recognizes the instrument instantly because the issuer was licensed under a mirrored standard. The position settles in minutes, the margining is live, and the audit trail is crisp enough for both regulators to sleep. No one cheers, yet the old rail just lost another mile of traffic. Another scene. A U.S. bank completes a day with a smaller pile of trapped cash because payables and receivables cleared through a supervised stablecoin with intraday redemption. That balance sheet improvement is tiny on day one. Then a second bank copies it, then a third. Small gains compound, and soon the path of least resistance is the new rail. There's a tension running under all of this. The narrative will be framed as safety and innovation, while the real engine is survival. Debt pressure needs speed. Market structure needs certainty. Crypto rails provide both, wrapped in oversight. That mix is too useful to ignore and too powerful to surrender once it works. Don't mistake this for a price story alone. It's an operating system story. When the operating system upgrades, every application that sits on top of it eventually upgrades too. Mortgages, pensions, trade finance, and even everyday payments will feel different because the pipes beneath them move from analog to programmable. Most people will wait for a press conference to confirm the turn. By then, the desks that matter will already be positioned. They won't announce that they switched. You will only notice when settlement risk feels lower and the old bottlenecks stop biting. So hold 3 markers in your mind. First, language convergence that uses the same terms for cross-recognition. Second, pilots that become daily production and then fade from the news because routine has replaced novelty. Third, limits that relax into scalable rules that let institutions hold and redeem at speed. If 2 of those 3 lock in, the third will follow. But the picture isn't complicated. It's simply hidden by boring words. The governments that once mocked crypto are turning it into the bloodstream of finance because the machine they built needs new circulation. The motive is necessity, not belief. And necessity is the strongest force in economics because it leaves no alternative that can survive contact with reality. The arc ends where it began, with a paradox. The insurgent tool that promised exit is being drafted into service to keep the system alive. You can fight the feeling, or you can see it clearly and act with intention before normal hardens around you. The switch isn't in the future. It's being flipped in slow motion right now in meeting rooms no camera can see. If you want these signals decoded before they hit headlines, subscribe now so you don't miss the next move. Now look at the stakes. Faster rails and sharper audits give early adopters cheaper funding and quicker cycle times. Speed compounds. Habits change as soon as the path opens. A treasurer who batched in a day transfer starts clearing in steady clips because the fee model rewards frequency. An asset manager who waited on custodian windows begins pledging and releasing collateral almost in real time while compliance reads the same ledger. Small choices stack into performance, and performance draws copycats. There will be resistance, but once a few large players jump and show tighter spreads with lower friction, the rest follow. Here's a tell that the migration has crossed the midpoint. The debate shifts to versions and standards, to which ledger speaks which language, and to who certifies bridges for cross-border traffic. When you hear that tone, adoption isn't a question, it's upkeep. Remember that tools mirror the hands that use them. Public chains grew from a desire to escape control. State-shaped rails grow from the need to reduce fragility. They will run side by side, sometimes in harmony and sometimes colliding. Know which rail you are on and what rules travel with it.